right, we're here with Michael Smith, author of Time to Play. It's Time to Play. Two books, right?
Two books.
One for band, playing band instruments,
Yes.
and one for the recorder. So, Michael, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you live, work. Tell us
Good.
everything.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
can tell you as much as you want to hear. But first of all, thank you for inviting me to speak to you.
yeah.
And I want to hear more about what you're doing as well.
Thank you.
So I have taught for a career spanning over 30 years. And I
Mm,
taught mainly high school and middle school. I was a department head in two school districts in Massachusetts. And I took a break from teaching to pursue a doctorate. When I
mm,
came back to teaching, I came back as an elementary teacher. And to prepare for teaching elementary school, I did a little preparation. And the preparation I did was sort of along the lines of the Feyerabend conversational solfege and the Kadai method.
okay.
And I discovered that there were some missing links. There was some information there that would translate to a better start for beginning band. So my book is all about connecting the first year of band and connecting the recorder to what students have already learned in these amazing general music programs. The research of Kodai,
Okay.
Feyerabend, and Orff and others has evolved, and so that's what my book does. It has folk songs from around the world because in this global economy and with our students coming from all over the country, we need to make sure we include all students. And then we need to build on
Okay.
what they know so they sort of don't get lost in that notation piece. The kids who can learn to pick up notation, they learn quickly. But if we start with music and songs that they know and the solfege and rhythm syllables that they know, and then we develop the literacy, then we get 100% kids successful, as opposed to when we start with the notation first, which is a traditional method, we probably only hit 50 to 75%. So you have more kids
Okay.
successful from all ethnicities.
Wow. That's something.
I know.
I'm glad you're talking about this. This is kind of I'm my degree's in a very useless degree in sociology. No, I no, I started as a music major and then I moved in and then I finished in sociology, but I've stayed in social science. So the idea of helping people or seeing the world through their cultural ethnic lens is big for me, and so it's
Huge.
great to see that. And so where did you say you are in Massachusetts again?
I'm in Massachusetts, so I'm on Cape Cod. I'm in a beautiful
Oh,
place
Cape
in
Cod.
Massachusetts.
Beautiful, cold in the winter, I'm sure.
Well, it's a little more temperate than Boston,
Right.
because it's just on the water, so it's a little cooler in the summer, which is sweet, and it's a
Yeah.
little warmer in the winter, which is also sweet.
So
A little more temperate.
you were doing so is music education been your career for
Music
your
education has been my
right, you
career.
said
I
30
consider
years.
myself an educator. I'm also a composer, a songwriter, and clinician.
Okay. What kind of music are you composing?
I write music for band, chorus, and orchestra.
Oh wow.
And
Okay.
so yeah, I've sort of, been around. I thought I like writing for band. My latest thing writing for band is to write music um, using folk songs from around the world. I just think we
Okay.
need more diversity in our concert band music.
So how are you
Um,
sourcing these folk, like what kind of cultures have you sourced one from folk music?
So my last two pieces that I've written, one was took three folk songs from Africa, and I wrote that for Falmouth Academy, and they'll be performing that in I think early May. Um,
Wow, cool.
but so the folk songs from Africa, and I tried to use the djembe and other authentic drums. And the other piece that I wrote was from China. I really focused on the song "See the Dragon Come," which has to do with the Chinese New Year. And I
Okay.
know for me, I have lots of Asian students. I have lots of Chinese students
Yes.
in my school.
Yeah.
And so it's really fun to be able to, say we could do a broad spectrum of music. And I really do think that the whole band literature needs to become more
global.
diverse. We just need to introduce more diversity
Yeah,
to
it's
it.
more fun too. My
It's
wife,
fun, very
yeah,
fun.
I've always been a jazz guy, but I love any kind of fusion music.
Exactly.
And especially Indian music it's amazing. And I
Beautiful.
remember I lived in Dallas for 10 years, and because of the high tech jobs, they just have a
Yep.
huge number of Asian, Chinese, Korean, Vietnamese, Indian people,
Mhm.
and it's great to well, especially East Asians, they tend to some reason gravitate towards string instruments, but it would be great to be able to show them how we can pull together their different traditions, and
Right.
yeah, that's cool.
Well, and the best way to get to know any culture is through its art and through its music in particular. Every culture sings songs. Every culture has their own instruments, their own music, their own songs. And so we understand a culture best through its music and art.
Right. So where can people get a hold of your compositions? Are they published by somebody? Are they
Yeah, so I have two publishers. I
uh,
everything that I write can be found on JW Pepper. And if they just
Okay.
look under if they look under my name, or they can go to my website, which is mfsmithmusic.com. You can find everything I wrote, and it's
Okay,
not
MS.
all up there yet, but
Yeah.
I'll get it up there within the next few months.
Yeah, okay. So you were doing middle school, high school before you were doing your doctorate. Is that correct?
Now I'm doing
Yeah.
elementary,
Now you're
right? I
doing
came
elementary.
back to the
Yeah.
elementary. So I'm in a grade 3 through 5 building. I
Hmm.
start kids in third grade, and we just sing songs from around the world. We add solfege and rhythm syllables, and we start recorder. And then I thought, well, the recorder methods really are a little bit narrow in their song collection. So I wrote a book that is 34 songs from around the world. And my recorder methods is
Okay.
called It's Time to Play the Recorder.
Hmm.
And it just sort of gets whole classes to sing lyrics, songs with lyrics, because a song is about the lyrics. If you leave the lyrics out, you just have a melody that's sort of not associated with lyrics. So they sing the songs, and then they play them on recorder. They learn the solfege, and then whole classes can
Okay.
sing and play. And then so that's third and fourth grade. And I have a recorder club after school for kids who want to go a
Yeah.
little deeper in recorder. And then when they get to fifth grade, they can either play an instrument in band,
Hmm.
or they sing in chorus.
Okay.
And if
Yeah.
they play, so then It's Time to Play a Band Instrument, and they play that has 50 songs from around the world,
Oh,
and
okay. Okay. Kind
they
of good.
sing, and then they play.
So yeah, my daughter's in fourth grade, my youngest daughter, and she just started clarinet, and
Awesome.
she was doing a recorder, and all my other kids are musicians too, but she wanted to be in it mostly because their friends were in it, and but I don't
Just fine.
the recorder. You said something that was really interesting about notation. What did you say about getting away from? Did you say something about getting away from notation or having a different approach to it?
No,
Okay,
no. My approach is this, and I just spoke at a conference in New Hampshire last weekend, and
okay,
this was my conference title: 11 Steps to Literacy, Moving from Music to Notation. And the
okay,
question is, you ask the question, what comes first, music or notation? And the answer, everyone knows the answer is music, music, music. But often when we teach beginners, we say, here's the notation, now you decipher it. And if we start with the music and add the notation, it's sort of just following along that Kadai Feyerabend Orff approach, where
uh-huh.
the sound comes first and then the sight. We sing it, we play it, and then we read it. And now we're successful at reading it. If we do the sight before sound, then we leave a lot of students behind because they just can't decipher notation. So we pull whole classes by sound before sight.
Right. This is how we learn language as babies.
Exactly.
So yeah, and yeah, my son's a jazz bassist and other recordings. I talk about him a lot, but he started he started with notation kind of, but he really got into playing rock bass and just figuring it out, playing by ear. I mean, even though he was exposed to all of it, and then he kind of went towards notation. And now I can kind of see the advantage of that because his ear is so much more developed than mine was because I started the
Well,
opposite way. Yeah,
that's the biggest point
yeah,
is if you can hear something, you can play it. If you can see something,
right.
and it's harder because you're guessing based on using your brain. If you it's your ear, the ear is our biggest tool. Yeah,
Yeah,
and I'm a big advocate for literacy. I want literate kids.
of
I
course.
just want to bring them all. I want to bring them all through I want them all to have the sound first, to play the song, and then this is what it looks like, and now you can figure out the next one. But yeah, literacy is important. It's just not as important as music.
Right. You're right on because let's face it, the majority of music in the world is folk music. So like you said, it's music that is maybe to certain streams of musicians non-sophisticated, or it's sophisticated in other ways than we would think. So
Exactly. And
yeah,
it's passed orally. It's
right,
passed, you just sing, and participate.
right, and then
And the other piece too is a lot of people are now saying that improvisation, when it comes time to improvise or create and compose, if you do notation first, we have so many kids who are afraid to experiment because they're sort of a slave to the page
okay,
or the notation. So so the kids, even when they start an instrument, they need to be creating music. They need to be improvising, making things up, playing songs, and then creating.
yeah,
And then because that's music.
right,
Improvisation and creativity is such an important part of music.
yeah.
And so many of us are starting to teach this way. And when
So
I go out and speak at conferences, people's eyes and ears light up and say, of course, I'm trying to do that. Now, thank you for helping me to see this.
so question then, you have a lot of education and music education. How do you think the music education undergrad degree could change to incorporate some of these methods?
So what I see from the undergraduate education is really some good stuff, but they throw out a lot of the methodologies.
Okay.
And there's this, there's that, there's this, there's that. And I think kids come out not sure how to help their students move from music. They know about it. Um, I think the colleges can do better, even though I know a lot. My sister-in-law is just a fantastic music education
Mhm.
teacher, and um, I think we can do better. I think there's a lot we have to rethink. When you say how do I think music education is going? I think music education, I'm sort of tired of hearing people say, well, we're stable. Well, we're making progress because I think music education is the best thing in the world. Everyone loves
Mhm.
music. I think we should be thriving. And I think we lose kids from the joyful elementary experience when it comes time for the middle school and we really push the notation. We lose kids who just they're not ready for
Yeah.
it. We have to let the music happen and the notation, and then I really, and we also have to do songs from around the world. We lose whole segments of our population because you know we've got students from South America and we don't do music, we don't do mariachi music from
From Mexico,
Mexico.
right.
We
Yeah.
we just there's so much more that we can do to include whole segments of the population.
Right. I
So
just
yeah, I think I wouldn't say we're in decline. I would say we're in transition towards I like to say that if we build on what students know, this joyful music education at the elementary school, if we build on what students know, we're going to have a renaissance in music education.
uh, right. Well, I mean, I with my own children, I've always even though I was in music, I try to tell them I never forced anything. Like if you want to learn piano, learn it. Or if you want to, I don't care. If you can get your grandparents to pay for the lessons, you can do it. No, and so but I've always felt as a musician that how do you get people to be more involved in the music they're listening to? Because I always saw, okay, you have the music we're listening to maybe on recordings, and now so much electronic music, and then you have the music education. How do we bring what would it look like to bring the two together? It seems like a mountain to climb in terms of training the next generation of teachers, but this whole idea of other cultures, and just it sounds like a one step maybe towards that, of just saying, hey, what are these people like that I'm teaching? How can I respect who they are and their culture a little bit more to get some music that's relevant to them and in the curriculum?
And I think if we just shift a few things,
Mm-hmm.
our band and chorus and orchestra enrollment will go up because we'll be including more kids. But also we've got to think about community singing throughout adulthood.
Right. Cool. So Snap Audition is obviously about it's software that I thought of in my head for just organizing auditions, making them easier to run. But so I like to ask people, what's your experience auditioning? When's the last time you did an audition?
I don't have to audition, although I feel every time I stand up in front of my class, I'm auditioning because, the kids are going to respond to my performance. And I'm not saying I'm a performer as an educator,
Right.
but I do have to look at kids who look at me and they look sad, and I have to make funny faces and say funny things and to get them to respond and sing with joy.
Right. Yeah.
So performance, I've not had to audition in a long time.
Yeah.
Probably since college. My
Wow.
wife plays with the Cape Cod Symphony, so she's performing and auditioning all the time.
Yeah.
But so the thing I'd say about auditioning is the more we can do to ease the process and make it as natural as we can, the
Right.
better off we are. And I think that's what you're trying to do. So how about if you tell me a little bit about that?
Oh yeah. So it's Snap, when I so I started as a musician and did a bunch of things, ended up in developing software, and now I'm an entrepreneur. So I like to think of ideas. And so I noticed my daughter, who's a singer, and my son auditioning for a bunch of things, including, all state band, choir, all these things.
Awesome.
Right. So, but especially during COVID, so many things went online, and the process was kind of cumbersome. It still is, go here to upload this, go here to fill out this form, go pay this thing here, or class time is taken away from auditioning so many kids. And so, I got the wheels spinning of how can we make this thing easier? How can we automate the administrative part? Because, band directors and artists and theater companies, they don't want to spend time with the administrative part. They want to make it easy for everybody. So that's why we built the platform, both for doing online auditions and doing in-person contests and auditions and all that. So that was my motivation, was make it easier for them. So but
Can the kids pay online?
Yes. So
see, when I was teaching high school and middle school, that was such a pain in the neck to collect the forms, to collect the checks, to write one check. It got so, anything you do to make auditioning easier for parents and band directors who work so hard. Anything you do to make the process easier is welcomed by everyone.
Yeah. So, all my family was is or was in education. Both my parents, my sister, my sisters-in-law, my brother-in-law. I couldn't do it, but I have a lot of sympathy for just the amount of work, extra work that the educators are having to do that is not related to teaching, or direct student contact. And I just thought, how do we make it more smooth for them? And also for the students, making it more equitable. So how do you, and that comes in a lot of different flavors. What does it mean to make it more equitable? Maybe that means making your audition more like, I like what you say, where you're embracing the music from their culture, uh, folk music, whatever it might be. But so I've been getting into these topics too, of what does it even mean to audition, right? Or what's the end goal of your audition? So we want to be a resource with the technology, the platform. That's the main thing. But we also want to be a place where people discuss these things. What does it mean to
I think
make a
that's amazing. I
yeah,
think that's amazing.
yeah,
I you know, I'll ask you this question. We have a lot of English learners who they speak English, but their parents are still working in still don't speak English as well as them.
right.
Do you have multiple languages in the process?
Yes. So
Ah,
I've developed several pieces of software or been the leader of and one of the things that I didn't do in the past was make the software what we call it multi-language support, right? So from the beginning our app is multi-language support. So as we increase the user base and we have the need, we're going to be adding other languages,
perfect.
because
I love that.
it's
Uh,
hard in the software world because you really have to build that in from the beginning. You just think every little button has to have, just like on the screen I'm looking at now, it says chat, well, you have to have a place for the other language. And I could get very nerdy talking about all the tech stuff, but no, yes. And one of the
So
things, and we've worked through all the scenarios where, okay, the mom or dad is helping the child or the student upload something. So they need to be able to switch to their language and then figure out what's happening. So,
right. So how about this? So they go and sign up on your website. The
all
band
right.
director or the organization directs them there. And do you have the requirements for the audition on that website?
Yes.
So the scales, the sight reading,
Right.
because there's also often scales and
Hmm.
sight reading. Do you have the piece itself?
Yeah.
You,
So what and people we have a free plan. You can go, you can run 100 auditions a year for free for any organization. So you could go
Mhm.
right now and check it out. But it we tried to think through every scenario that we could think of, and it really starts with, in our world, with the scoring scheme. Like, how are you going to judge? And so the judging part or adjudicating is built right into it, but then it goes to the instructions. So and you can customize those based on the instrument, any type of category. So you could upload documents, which or audio files or video or anything. And then we're just releasing now where you can even record right in the software, in the website.
Oh, yeah,
And
recording is a nice thing
yeah,
because if anyone questions, someone could go back and listen. And how about the
yeah,
judges themselves? Are
yeah.
they judging with paper and pencil or are they judging on a tablet?
Well, they could use a tablet or a computer, but so this is another thing we thought of. So thinking about equity, kind of step back a little bit. I've noticed too with a lot of competitions that we're not very careful in terms of how we instruct judges. And the more people I talk to, I realize that judge education is kind of one of the biggest problems in auditions, is telling the judges what is it, how to judge, because we're talking about art here, right? So art is always going to be a subjective experience, but the question then becomes, what are we looking for? So we're very big on rubrics. So we built a whole system where you can create a judging rubric, and you could download that and print it. You can even go to our site and use it, use that builder for free for whatever you want. But that goes into the judging, where the judge is selecting how well they did on each element, and
Mm-hmm.
then they can choose to share that back with the entrant, so the entrant can see how well they did on that rubric. And so they just click those things. They can type feedback, and they can even record feedback if they want to, and then that goes
Ah,
back to the student. So depending on the judging scheme, will alter the judge's experience in terms of what they're required to do. So, for example,
Mhm.
if it's the traditional solo ensemble, they're just providing a score for that student, that entrant. If they're ranking them, then they would actually rank them. Or if they're just scoring them, then they would score, and the system automatically tabulates all the scores. So,
Love the tabulation because judges
yeah,
don't need that. They've got kid after kid after with
yeah.
lines out the
It's
door.
so it's
You
like
know,
TikTok. You can
take
just
that
swipe
piece
through.
away.
Yeah,
This is the only other thing that I would say in that process
yeah,
is the hardest thing when I've had to judge is you might have anywhere from a 4 to 8 hour span of judging. And in the first hour, are you able to remember the score you
right.
gave? Are you when you get to the seventh hour or the third hour, are you
Yeah.
able to remember that person who got a high score or a medium score, just so everything is fair? So I would say, is there any way that you can see how you've done through the day? You can
Yes.
sort of
Yeah. So you have a list here that shows you every, drop down. It has all the people you've already judged, and you can
ah,
automatically go back to back.
very helpful. I used to
Yeah.
do that by paper and
Yeah.
pencil.
Too
I kept
slow.
track of
Yeah.
every kid
Yeah.
because I felt like I had to. If I really wanted to be fair, I had to really remember every single kid.
Yeah. We did a lot of research thinking through what is it like for first, judging recorded and non-recorded live auditions. And one thing we built in too was you can save your score, and then you can go back and finalize later. And then you can always
Mhm.
go back and edit your score until the admin finalizes the whole thing. So
Mhm.
we tried to, and we're constantly changing it. So, because like our key, we we realized too, like if you're hired to judge a competition or adjudicate, you're usually paid just a flat fee, right? Some nominal fee, or
I think you get paid something, but
yeah,
judges never do it for the money.
you don't do it, but we want, and that's especially motivating to us because you're there because you want to serve the community. You don't
That's
want
what's
to do
that's
all
what's
this
happening.
paperwork, right? And the other thing that I noticed with my kids was they would never get feedback. And so, me as a young auditioner back in the day, I would only get feedback for the solo and ensemble type of competition. And it made me think, well, okay, well, that's nice because, well, I mean, we are placing kids in some kind of group or even a college or whatever it might be. But are we serving them by helping them improve? Right. Because I think
Oh,
that,
you always want to give kids feedback.
right.
As a judge, I there's always one or two comments. And I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
what's the one or two things that I can say, I don't need to say 10 things, but what are the one or two most important things I can say to this kid to help them progress?
Yeah. That's beautiful. But, when you think of an audition that has 500 people, getting that feedback that you wrote to the right person is challenging without some kind of technology. And
Yeah.
so I think I even think I've sometimes judges will write feedback and it doesn't get to the recipient. Um, and have you been
Hmm.
in? The more research I've done, the more I realize sometimes the factors could be that maybe the entrant or their parents aren't happy with the result, and so they don't want to give all the feedback because then they might complain because the
Yeah.
politics of it, right? So
Possible. I
yeah,
always made sure I got feedback from when I was a director, I got feedback back to the kids. I can't
yeah,
imagine not doing that. And sometimes if I thought it was harsh, I would just soften it and
yeah.
say, this is what they
I
said.
can't
But
imagine you
you
being
know,
harsh.
so here's another thing. Probably the thing that everyone hates most about auditions is waiting, right? So sometimes you have an event on a Saturday, right? You judge, and
Right,
the kids might find out on Tuesday how they did. But
right.
everything's tabulated by Saturday night. I wonder if through your process, they could find out on Saturday night after the final tabulations are done.
Right.
Why not?
Yeah, because
Let them know as
you
soon
can
as
publish it
possible.
right. Right. You can choose to publish right to a website
Right,
on our system, and
right.
we built checks in too, where so the admin and audition admin, it does an audit to make sure like you've judged everybody, there's no ties, and then it tells you, okay, there's a tie. And so a lot of things that would take days to do, that's where we wanted to come in, because just who wants to spend their weekend or the Sunday after the Saturday competition sifting through pieces of paper? It's boring, right? So
Right. And
yeah,
then separating the paper, mailing it back to the school. I mean, of course, now we do everything digitally. So
right,
you could email the scores, but we have to wait for the papers to get back.
yeah,
But if that's all done by computer and
right.
you can get the band director can take Sunday off, the kids can find out Sunday morning or Saturday night how they did. Oh, everyone's happy. Win, win, win all the way around.
So
I think it's great.
do you do any auditions now? Do do you volunteer or do any adjudicating now, or
No,
is
I'm
that
not doing any now.
now
I'm
it's in
not
the
doing any now. I'm concentrating on
yeah,
the kids who are in front of me
good,
and writing the second edition of my book
great. So
and
the
composing.
tell me about the second edition. What's it's what are you gonna tweak in that?
So I wrote the first edition. It came out in July of my band book. And then over the summer, I wrote the recorded book.
Okay,
And I liked the recorded book better than the band book.
okay,
So I revised and I added more ethnic songs, more songs from around the world. So my first book, my recorded book has 34 songs. I think the first version of my book had maybe 40 songs. I don't remember. I'd have to look at it. But now my band book has 50 songs. And it's got songs,
okay,
just it's got great songs. And my kids in the first year, because of the sound before sight, they learned 50 songs. And they learned to read them too. But the second edition, on each page, on the right-hand side of the page, it has the lyrics. On the
okay,
left-hand side of the page, it has the notation with information underneath. It has a solfege, the letter names, and um, the rhythm syllables. So now you could take it to a multi-step process. They sing and finger, and then they play. And then eventually you want to get them back to the right side of the page where they can read the notation without the information underneath. So
okay,
I call it 11 steps to literacy.
yeah,
And you start with the song and the lyrics. You go over here to the solfege, note names, and rhythm syllables, and then you come and counting, and then you come back to just the notation. When they get to middle school, the middle school band director needs them to read without information underneath. And
yeah,
I never myself, so you just want to get them to the literacy part, but you really want to give them a year or two just to focus on learning their instrument, learning to play some scales, like chromatic scale, and 30 to 50 songs, and enjoying loving their instrument. You don't want the notation to keep anyone away.
right. Yeah, that's great. I mean, and so you are focusing on the elementary school age children.
I,
Yeah,
I'm focusing on elementary,
right.
but I'm also very confident, as I said early, that this foundation that hits all students and helps all students to be successful will weave its way through middle school and high school and into adulthood, so that we see what I'm calling a renaissance of music education. More
Mm.
kids successful, more kids participating.
So, what do you think the number one reason is that a kid in elementary school before middle school gets out or doesn't succeed? Drops out.
Two things. Number
Okay.
one, when we emphasize notation when they start an instrument as primary, and that's a traditional method,
Okay.
50% of the kids struggle, and as many as 50%, 50% drop because I can't do this. My brain doesn't work that way. I loved singing. I loved playing the recorder, but the notation piece is too hard.
Okay. Okay.
So we lose kids for that reason. Um, And if we focus on singing songs, playing songs, we get kids. The other reason is just my culture isn't represented. This isn't my music. This sounds like, folk songs that belong to another culture. And so we have to include all cultures. And
Right.
so those two things, I think a diverse music collection and sound before sight, learn to play your instrument and learn and add notation. Even right from the beginning, we're adding notation, but we're playing and singing songs and we're adding the notation.
Right. Okay. Wow. So if you could, so start with giving them the instrument or vocalizing without overburdening them with too many things that they have to try to figure out. Right.
Think about it,
Yeah.
how hard it is to start an instrument. I
Yeah.
mean, you got that clarinet. I'll just take the clarinet. You got to first of all assemble all those pieces, the
Yeah.
mouthpiece,
Yeah.
the barrel, the two pieces, and then you gotta get that reed on just right. You gotta wet it. You
Right.
gotta get the ligature on, and then you gotta make a sound, right?
Right.
And at the same time, you have to finger. And while you're fingering, you have to blow into the instrument. You have to have breath support. And by the way, now you have to read music.
It's a lot. Yeah.
So I break it down. My kids go home from their first lesson able to play 6 songs, but I teach them how to play the clarinet, B, Ray, Do, or EDC, and then they can play Hot Cross Buns, Go Around the Mountain, Mary Had a Little Lamb, Kuma-san. Notice I mentioned that. That's a Japanese song that they also learn on recorder in 3rd grade. But if we teach them songs and then say, all right, now, by the way, that song you played, this is how it looks like. This is how it looks. Now let's read it. But we sound before sight. So so it's about the songs. It's always about the songs, right? Notation and melodies sort of lose their interest if they're just melodies. Like, where do they come from?
Yeah.
Not that you can't just have instrumental music. There is some instrumental music, but songs are for life. They're an expression of people around the world. So by singing songs and then playing them on instruments, we're really it's pretty authentic.
It would be cool to see
expression.
It'd be cool to see this approach carried on through middle school, high school, because I'm coming from the jazz world where, you're learning by ear, obviously learning tunes, understanding, what's happening is super important. And of course, in jazz, notation of it came later. But I do think we miss so many people because, like you said, we focus on notating stuff when the vast majority of music we're listening to now isn't notated, or it's notated through GarageBand or some technology in a different way that we're not used to, right?
Yeah, and of course, I'm not saying no to literacy. I'm saying just music first. My big saying is let musicality flourish as literacy develops. And the traditional way is start with literacy. Don't read anything. Don't play anything until you can read it first. And it's opposite of the research that I've come across in the elementary. Sound before sight, Kadai, solfege, Feierabend, and then sing with joy, and then add solfege, and then add note names, and then play. But it's really about music as expression. And you mentioned middle school and high school. This is what I tell middle school and high school band directors at conferences that when I present is that you have your 45-minute rehearsal. And you really need it because you've got a concert coming up and you've got this beautiful literature that you want to teach. But take 2 minutes or 3 minutes every day to play a song. Because 20 years from now, they'll play that song, but they're not going to play the 3rd clarinet part to the literature.
No, I don't think they'll remember that one. No.
They won't remember that, but they'll play the song. Can they play the national anthem in unison? because they'll play that 10 years from now, but they won't play the third trumpet part.
That's true. I remember no parts from my high school trombone days. I
But
yeah.
the song, can everyone play Happy Birthday?
Yeah, correct.
Can everyone play, can everyone play some patriotic songs? Can everyone play songs? Because so take a little time. And the other thing I tell high school band directors to do, middle school band directors also, now I don't tell anyone what to do, that I suggest, is that you take some time and do some creating. Take some time and do some improvisation. Play a pentatonic scale and make something up, or play a jazz tune and have a little improvisation. So we've got to keep our kids creating. We have to go beyond, just literature. Like, literature is vital to the band world, but there's also cultural diversity, music from around the world. There's songs, there's creativity, and we've got to explore it all. And I think it's starting to happen. I am not the only one saying it. At conferences, I hear other people saying it. But you mentioned the colleges.
Yeah.
You mentioned this whole education. We teach the way we were taught, and we all played in our own bands, and we loved it. But I think these days, I think we just need a little bit more for kids to keep our band world thriving and reaching more into the student population, the diverse student population, the creative student population. So
we got to be flexible. And we have to be open-minded. That's for sure. Yes,
we do.
Yes. So so everybody needs to check out your website, mfsmithmusic.com. MF
That's right.
So that will, and then we can check out the all the stuff you're doing. The
JW Pepper,
and then Jeff
Michael
Pepper.
Francis Smith.
Right. Cool. Thank you so much for your time, and enjoy your Cape Cod summer.